Shalom, shalom, and welcome, my dear viewer and my dear listener, to Joyce, aka Daughter of Zion, YouTube channel. Thank you so much for choosing to watch my videos. May God literally bless you. And so, thank you, my subscriber. And for those who have not subscribed, kindly subscribe, like, and even comment the videos, and God will bless you. So we continue with our series about Paul. We are looking at Paul, and we said we want to see whether Paul supported the law or not. So this is part 4 of the same. And we have looked at the food, we have looked at the Sabbath. So today we want to look at another commandment that God gave and see what Paul had to say, so that now after that we can decide for yourself. You can make your own judgment. You can say whether Paul supported the law of our Maker or not. So today I want us to look at the circumcision. And on circumcision, we start by reading Genesis chapter 17. If you learn from verses 9, then God said to Abraham. So it is God who is saying to Abraham, it is God who is giving this commandment, not any other person. As for you, you must keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you, for the generations to come. This is my covenant with you and your descendants after you, the covenant you are to keep. Every male among you must be circumcised. So the covenant about, or the commandment about circumcision was given to all the men, not women. You are to undergo circumcision, and it will be the sign of the covenant between you and me. So here, circumcision is a sign between God and Abraham together with the descendants. For the generations to come, every male among you who is 8 days old must be circumcised, including those born in your household or bought with money from a foreigner, those who are not your offspring. So here, this commandment was given to everybody, those born Israelites and those not born Israelites. Whether born in your house, okay, that one I've read. If 14, any uncircumcised male who has not been circumcised in the flesh will be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. So circumcision is given to one. All the men, it is a sign, it is a lasting covenant, and it is given to all, whether Israelites or non-Israelites. And here we are told that any uncircumcised male who has not been circumcised in the flesh, so circumcision is in the flesh. Now, that was the commandment that God gave about what? About circumcision. So we look at what another scripture about circumcision. We'll go to Exodus chapter 12, verses 48 and 49. An alien living among you who wants to celebrate the Lord's Passover must have all the males in his household circumcised. Then he may take part like one born in the land. No uncircumcised male may eat of it. Remember, it's still being repeated. that circumcision is for the male. The same law applies to the native born and to the alien living among you. So the law of circumcision was given to all, whether you are an Israelite or a non-Israelite. That was God who gave that commandment, that law. And my dear viewer and my dear listener, I repeat that God said that he will never alter anything that has gone out of his mouth, of his lips. That is Psalms 89 verses 34. So let us see what Paul had to say about circumcision. And we read, remember we said we are not putting words in anybody's mouth. So we want to start by reading Galatians chapter 5. Galatians chapter 5. We see what Paul said. You read chapter 5, we read verses 2 and 3. It says, mark my words, I, Paul, tell you that if you let yourselves to be circumcised, Christ will be of no value to you all. Again, verse 3, I declare to every man who lets himself to be circumcised that he is required to obey the whole law. Hey. Now, Paul has said that, mark my words, I, Paul, tell you. So here, we are not putting words in his mouth. He is the one, he who has said that, I, Paul, tell you. And he has continued to say that, again, I declare to every man, that is verses 3, who lets himself to be circumcised, that he is required to obey the whole law. So, one, if you get, Paul is, remember, in Genesis, we have been told that it is a covenant, a lasting covenant. But here, he is telling people that if you get circumcised, one, Christ will be of no value to you. He also continues to say that if you allow yourself to be circumcised, now you are required to observe the whole law. My question is Saint circumcision a command? Yeah, this is Paul. That is one thing that he said about circumcision. And remember where he is saying, mark my words, I, Paul. And so it is Paul who is saying, not God, not Jesus. Jesus said that I have come in my Father's name, and you do not receive me. But if another will come in his own name, him you shall receive. That is John 5:43. So Paul is saying, I, Paul. So he is the one who has come in his own name. So we also want to read something else that he said about circumcision in 1 Corinthians chapter 7. I want 1 Corinthians 7. Let us read verses 17 to 20, because we do not want somebody to say that, no, we are saying what Paul did not say. 17 to 20 says that, nevertheless, each one should retain the praise in life that the Lord assigned to him and to which God has called him. This is the rule I laid down in all churches. So he is the one who is laying this rule to the churches. Was a man already circumcised when he was called? he should not become uncircumcised. Was a man uncircumcised when he was called, he should not be circumcised. Hey, circumcision is nothing, and uncircumcision is nothing but keeping the commands. But keeping God's commands is what counts. Each one should retain the situation which he was in when God called him. My dear viewer and my dear listener, let's note carefully what he has said, that this is the rule I laid down to all churches. So still again, it is Paul who is telling people to remain uncircumcised, contrary to what God commanded. And I still repeat that God is not a man that he should change his mind, neither is he a son of man that he should. God is not a man that he should lie, neither is he a son of man that he should change his mind. So, he has never changed his mind about circumcision. But Paul wants people to remain uncircumcised. Remember, circumcision is on the flesh. That is what we have learned from Genesis chapter 17. So let me ask you, if he is telling us, if you are called when you are circumcised, you should not let yourselves to be, you should not be uncircumcised. How now? You are already circumcised. How do you become uncircumcised? And circumcision is on the flesh. He wants people to remain uncircumcised. He has said that if you are called when you are not circumcised, you should remain uncircumcised. So in short, Paul wants people to remain uncircumcised. He does not want people to obey. And Paul is not consistent in what he is telling people. In his teachings, he is not consistent. He applied double standards. Why am I saying that? He has told people not to be circumcised, and that if you let yourself to be circumcised, Christ, and by Christ I think he means Jesus, will not profit you in any way. That is what he has told people. One, not to be circumcised, and if you be circumcised, Christ will not profit you in anything. But if we read Acts, so that we can, my dear viewer, you can see that this person called Paul was not consistent in whatever he was saying. If you read Acts chapter 16, let's learn from verses 1 up to 3. Acts 16, he came to Derbe and then to Lystra, where a disciple named Timothy lived, whose mother was a Jewess and a believer, but whose father was a Greek. The brothers at Lystra and Iconium spoke well of him. Paul wanted to take him along on the journey, so he circumcised him because of the Jews who lived in that area, for they all knew that his father was a Greek. Remember, let us note, he circumcised Timothy. And he is the same person who is telling people not to be circumcised. And if you get yourself circumcised, Christ will profit you nothing. So the Greeks did not circumcise their men. In Galatians chapter 2 verses 7, Paul says that he was called to preach the gospel to the Gentiles. Galatians chapter 2, verses 7 says that, on the contrary, they saw that I had been entrusted with the task of preaching the gospel to the Gentiles, just as Peter had been to the Jews. So here he is telling us that he was called to preach the gospel to the Gentiles. And the Gentiles did not have the law, so they did not circumcise their men. And he is saying that it is Peter who was called to preach to the Jews. So, as the Gentiles did not circumcise their men, so were the Greeks. So, my question is, why did he circumcise Timothy? That is why I'm saying that he was not consistent in whatever he was doing. Because if, remember, we have learned in Corinthians that he is saying that this is the rule I set to all the churches. So if it is the rule he's setting to everyone, to all the churches, why is he breaking his own rule by circumcising Timothy? And again, that if you get yourself circumcised, Christ will not profit you. So he doesn't want Timothy to profit from Christ. Anyway, another interesting thing I'd like us to note, let us read Acts chapter 15. Let me see. Acts chapter 15. I want us to note in Galatians, he has said that he was called to preach to the Gentiles and Peter to the Jews. Now, let us hear what Peter is saying in Acts chapter 15, verses 7. After much discussion, Peter got up and addressed them. Brothers, you know that some time ago, God made a choice among you and that the Gentiles might hear from my lips the message of the gospel and believe. In this discussion, in this meeting, Paul was there. Paul was there in this meeting. And now Peter has stood up to address them. And he has said that God made a choice among them, and he chose Peter so that the Gentiles can hear the gospel from his lips. So here Peter is saying that he's the one who was called by God to preach to the Gentiles. And Galatians 2:7, Paul is saying that he is the one who was called to preach the gospel to the Gentiles and Peter to the Jews. So now, who is speaking the truth? Between Paul and Peter, who is speaking the truth? Because even when Paul said this, Peter said this, Paul did not dispute. He did not even correct him, supposing now Peter had made a mistake or forgotten his call. Paul did not correct him. So, who is talking the truth? Peter has said clearly that God chose him, that the Gentiles might hear the gospel from his lips. And Paul is also saying that it is him who was called to speak to the Gentiles and Peter to the Jews. So, who is speaking the truth? So, it leaves a lot to be desired. Everything about Paul leaves a lot to be desired. He told the Corinthians that he was called, if you are called uncircumcised, you should remain circumcised, you should remain uncircumcised. And remember, he has said that it is the rule he's giving to the churches. There is a lot, especially now. There is quite a lot. It leaves a lot to be desired. Even if we wanted to defend him, surely how now do we do that? He claimed to be an apostle of Jesus. And even from whatever he is talking, even if somebody wanted to defend Paul, unless somebody has a veil in his eyes and mind. And that is why I said that we approach this discussion with an open mind. And one is able to see clearly that Paul is actually against what God commanded, and he wants people to disobey God by not doing what God commanded, and he is not consistent with what he is saying. He is not. Remember, Jesus was also circumcised on the 8th day, as we have learned in Genesis, as per the commandment. And here Paul claims to be an apostle of Jesus. And he was tasked to preach the gospel to the Gentiles. But if you read Matthew 28, where Jesus gave the Great Commission to his disciples, Matthew 28:19 says that, therefore, go and make disciples of all nations. Let me even lead up to there. All nations. This is the Great Commission that Jesus gave to his disciples, 11 of them. That go and make disciples of all the nations. Sasa, all means that even the Gentiles are included. How now is Paul telling us that he was told to preach to the Gentiles? That he is the one who was told to preach to the gospel, to the Gentiles. How? And Jesus gave the command to the disciples to go to all the nations, everywhere, even to the Gentiles. They were told to go this time loud. And Paul was not there. Paul came much, much later to claim to be an apostle of Jesus. So when calling Paul to go to preach the Gentiles, did Jesus forget what he had told his disciples? No, Jesus cannot forget. My dear viewer and my dear listener. So, in matters circumcision, is Paul speaking according to the law and the testimony? No, he is not. He is not. And we have read the scriptures so that nobody should say that we are against Paul. We are putting words in his mouth. No, he is saying, mark my word, I, Paul. And he is saying that it is the command or the rule he's giving to all the churches. He's not consistent in whatever he will say. So in him, there is no right of dawn. So, shalom, shalom, my dear viewer and my dear listener. That was part 4. Thank you for watching. God bless you so much. Let me kindly request you to subscribe to this channel and like the video, comment, and God bless you. Let's meet in the next video. Shalom, shalom.